All right, we're going to get started. This is Community Housing Community Development Act Committee. We're going to begin. We're short of a quorum, so we're not going to take any action, of course, tonight until we have a quorum. The first item on our agenda is Certificate of Rehabilitation Program. Welcome, Kevin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee, Sarah Flax, Administrator. I'm here to talk about two programs. The first item, which is Certificate of Rehabilitation, and the second item is the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program. Certificate of Rehabilitation Program has been in existence since 2013 and has been a key component of the city's workforce development and training efforts in terms of helping returning citizens in our community to be eligible for employment by allowing their records to be expunged, to be partially sealed, to be sealed, and we also have had a couple of clemencies over that period of time. So it's been a resounding success. Normally it reaches probably around 150 people a year, but this year we sought to greatly expand the program because of the efforts of the city, which was looking to operate station adjustments or work with the police department on station adjustments so that our youth who are getting into trouble or having some problems would not be saddled with a criminal record. And so we expanded our program into the Mayor's Summer Youth Employment Program by providing every single participant in that program with information on the Certificate of Rehabilitation Program. We further expanded it by meeting with the Dean of Students at ETHS, and we have opened up an office at ETHS where we have staff, city staff in that office 2 days a week at the high school. And so we're doing everything that we can to inform the community about the program, working with the children who then also work and expand, give information to the families. This year we're requesting, as we did what we received last year, which was $30,000.
It shows here you got 40,000.
Is it listed as 40?
But we appreciate you're only asking for 30.
Yes, we're asking for 30.
Did you have 10 left over?
You know, is that correct? Did we get 40? I thought we were. We didn't have any money left over. I can tell you that.
I can answer that because we did. You had asked for more, and when we got more money than the original allocation, we increased. The committee increased it, and so that's why it was pushed up.
My mistake.
So, and we have expended it all on the program this year already.
Yes, we have.
Alderman Nguyen?
Yes. Mr. Brown, can you, of the number of residents who took advantage of this, what's the success rate in terms of getting through
the success rate is 100% if you take advantage of it. In terms of if you're eligible for expungement, you get expunged. If you're eligible for partial seal, you get the partial seal.
Okay.
So there's an assessment made regarding the eligibility. If they're eligible, then if they follow through with the paperwork, it's 100%.
Okay. Well, I know the paperwork is complex.
Yes, that's the toughest part.
Yeah. So how do we? So your numbers are how many expunge? Do you know how many expunge?
We do. I don't have that information with me on hand, but I will. I can email it to you.
I'd like to see the numbers just to understand.
I will give that to you. I'll follow up.
It's excellent work. It's really important.
Kevin, if you could get to Jessica and me the number of each level,
Yes.
We will get it to full committee.
Okay. we'll do that first thing in the morning.
Okay, do you want to do the next one now?
Yes. The next one is Mayor Summer Youth Employment Program. Each year we ask for support for our summer supervisors who work in public works and assist with the community maintenance team. This year we were able to employ 30 youth in the community maintenance team who were supervised and supported through this request for $25,000, I believe that is correct.
You asked,
That was the $25,000 for the 2018 award, yes, and we asked for 30 because of the increase costs in terms of benefits and the costs that are being paid to the staff who are doing the supervision, the increase in pay. I did want to point out that the community maintenance team this year was able to restore and paint 300 street lights and poles were painted. 60 bags of trash were picked up and areas swept. 40 alley segments were cleaned and trimmed. 25 traffic signal intersections were refurbished, and 10 Evanston playgrounds were mulched by the community maintenance team. And the money that we request is for the supervisors of that team.
and that's seasonal.
That's seasonal. It's over a 9-week period in
Yeah.
the summer.
They do a really good job. Let them know, okay.
Oh, thank you. I will.
At least I think they do. All right. I see no lights on. Shall we let Kevin go? Yeah. Thank you very much.
Should I wait
Good job.
around? Or?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Get out while the getting's good.
Okay. I'll get you that.
Hey, good evening.
Okay.
Chair, committee members, I'm Gary Gertis. I manage the Building and Inspection Services Division, which has oversight of the graffiti removal program. The $50,000 funding request is for continuation of the city's graffiti removal program, which has been an effective program since the 1970s. The majority of the request is for salary and benefits of our graffiti technician, but would also cover a portion of supplies, clothing, and vehicle costs. The request covers 50% of the program costs, with the remaining funding coming from the general fund. There is not an alternative funding source for the graffiti program. The program goal is to remove all graffiti as it occurs. Carlton Mims is our graffiti technician. He's been our graffiti technician for 25 years. He handles probably 99% of the graffiti removals. Public Works does assist Carlton when we need a pressure washer. That probably happens 3 to 5 times a month. There are certain times when we cannot access a graffiti tag, so we do have a contractor do those removals, typically upper floors of a building, et cetera. That's probably 3 to 5 times a month. So we're removing about 1,300 tags annually, probably about 400 different locations. We did about similar last year. We're expecting about similar for the coming year too. So pictures and locations of all tags are sent to the police department. They have a database of locations, helps them assist with patrol and identification of those tags. So that's all I have. Any questions?
I can tell the committee that this past week, I think every flat surface from Ridge on Howard East has been covered with this orange graffiti. It is the most unbelievable, and it's all the same person, and it's big, and it's really ugly, and it was just everywhere. And huh? I know.
Yeah, I think we had 7 requests in the last 2 days, and pretty much, I think,
I don't
six
see
of the 7
how
were Howard
nobody
Street.
can see it happening, you know? I mean, somebody's got to see it. So, anyway, thank goodness we have it, yeah.
Perfect.
So, and he does a great job. I mean, he's out there at 7 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
sometimes cleaning it up. So, yeah. All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right. Next, we have graffiti. Let's see, where are we? Target area graffiti. Okay, we have a fence. Welcome.
Hello, my name's Laura Biggs. I'm the city engineer. I have 4 projects that we're applying for, and I'll just go through them one at a time. The first is at Clyde Brummel Park to replace the existing fence, which is a split rail log type fence with a panel fence. This would assist in keeping children from running into the street or balls from going into the street. The panel fence, or the existing fence, is a more decorative and sort of just sets the boundaries for the park. So that project is basically just a fence replacement.
Can I speak to that? We had a meeting with Lawrence Hemingway 2 years ago, and we had the meeting in the park, and the area where you play ball in this park is adjacent to Lot 18, which is a city permitted parking lot. There's this raggedy fence that has, I mean, and the split rails are very tiny, and they're very circumference.
It is very decorative in nature.
Very small. And people were telling us, and lots of parents came out, people were telling us, well, these kids, they don't even look. They just run into the parking lot after the balls. And as we're sitting there, this car, and it's a dead end. The parking lot is against the Metra tracks, and so people just zoom in because they know they're not going to come in contact with another car. And this car came flying down Brummel, and this kid went flying out of the park after this ball. And honest to God, everybody's heart stopped. And they said, see, that happens all the time. It was almost as though we're staged. And it's really terrifying. And I don't know what kind of fence you're going to put up, but it can't have any holes in it so that the balls can.
It's one of those, like a mesh panel fence. We have these at a number of locations. So the panel, it's like a wire, but it's sturdier than just regular wire, like a wire in a grid that comes up, I believe, 3 to 4 feet high. I'm not sure the exact height.
Yeah.
We have these at Tot Lots.
I know
and they
which one
really
you're
are
talking-
very effective.
Yeah, I know
Parents
which-
I've talked to are very happy with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I know what.
Yeah,
you
there's
mean.
no
A ball
gap.
can't go through.
There's no gap between any of the fence and the ground, or
Yeah.
gaps in the fence itself, except where we put a gate. And I think this is, I want to say we have this type of fence even at like Penny Park with this
Right.
mesh panel.
Yes. And actually, when we first started using them, I think Stephanie Levine said people started calling her office asking what they were because they wanted to have them.
It's,
They
and
wanted
it's
to use
not
them.
unattractive either. I think we have
No.
one at Richmond Brummel Park over west of Dodge. Yeah.
No, this is a fence, I wouldn't call it like a high-end wrought iron fence,
No.
but it's a fence that
It's
looks
durable,
very
and it's
nice.
durable.
It's durable, easy to maintain.
I know exactly which one now that you
I think our
mentioned.
first use of it was when we did Fleetwood Jourdain with all of our CDBGR money, the area, the whole grounds around it.
Right.
That I don't know. I mean, I've been over there a million times, but I never noticed a fence.
Okay.
That's good. I'm glad. It's so desperately needed.
So our second project is in Harbert Park to improve the bike path. Harbert Park is located along the canal between Dempster and Main Street, and there is a bicycle path 10 feet wide, elderly in its condition, that basically goes the entire north-south length. That path has some specific areas that are low spots that create, they flood in the winter when the snow melts, then it ices over. The longest section where this is happening is 90 feet, but it's about 300 feet total and 4 to 5 sections of pathway. And so the goal would be to install under drain around the path to help the water drain away, and then redo the pathway and the grading in that area so it's less inclined to flood.
And we don't have any bicycle money set aside for bike paths or anything to use on this?
We do not. We do have some money that generally goes to 50/50 sidewalk and neighborhood traffic calming, but there's not an extra $100,000 in that pot of money.
But I was thinking of sharing maybe some, because I know I did my spreadsheet and I'm short. So I'm looking.
As often happens.
So I was looking, there were several items that I thought maybe we could get some sharing going on here, but there's no bicycle path or. And
unlike normal, when I normally come here and tell you, you have to fund a project or don't fund it. This is one where we could potentially repair less of the pathway if it were partially funded. I do want to state also that we are in the process of applying for an OSLAD grant for Harbert Park. It has nothing to do with this pathway. The grant itself would be to do improvements related to the playground and some of the amenities that are in the park. But generally, there's also money that was budgeted this year. We were unable to complete the project because we didn't receive responsible bids. So we're rebidding the project to do the basketball court at Harbor Park on the south end. That's being paid for out of Good Neighbor funding from 2018 Northwestern University.
That's a lot of
funds.
money. I read that in the proposal.
So that money would help, if we do receive the OSLAD grant, would go towards our city match, because we would still be doing the same work, but if we get the grant, it will allow us to do some additional work.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, next.
The lead service replacement program. So this project is related to lead service line replacement. There's been a lot of information that started with Flint, Michigan, but has continued to develop over the last several years about lead services, which are the section of the water distribution system that goes from the city's water main to the individual households. The city has a lot of lead services. I want to say on the order of 10,000 lead services out of our 14,000 that we have. And some of the information that has been developed through research shows that when we replace our water main, we typically replace our section of the service that goes from the city water main to the Buffalo box and the shutoff valve in the parkway. We do not replace the part that is on private property from the shutoff valve to the house. Doing these types of partial lead service line replacements is shown that over time, in general, because we've disturbed a protective coating that's developed over time inside the pipe, it creates a situation where partial service replacement increases the amount of lead that goes into a home. This can be alleviated with a lot of flushing, but in general, the push is going to getting rid of these partial lead service line replacements. In our current water main program, what we do is we offer homeowners a zero-interest loan up to $4,800 to replace their section of the service at the same time we're replacing our section of the service. In 2018, we had approximately 10 people take advantage of that program.
Do we do the replacement, or do we require them to hire?
We require them to replace it. But we've been doing these partial lead service line replacements as a standard thing for decades.
Right.
This is just how the industry has developed. And so the purpose of this money is actually to work with the housing rehab program and provide additional funding to replace approximately 10 partial lead services where we have already done the water main improvement, or we're doing the water main improvement in this year. We would allow the housing rehab program to now replace the private section of the lead service line replacement. all of these programs, including our loan program, are kind of being done on a pilot basis because, like every community, we're really just trying to figure out how to deal with the monumental task of the lead service line question. So the goal would be really $75,000 would probably cover the first 10 or so people that volunteer to be in the program. Our average that we've seen over the years is around $7,500 for the portion of the lead service line that is on private property. It varies. It varies by how long that line is. It varies by whatever the contractor happens to bid for the project. In this past year, we were seeing actually slightly lower prices, more like $6,000 on average. So the money we think would fund 10, it would just fund until, or it could be more than 10. And that would be totally administered by our existing housing rehab program. All of the participants would be income qualified by that program.
And I have a recommendation on this one.
Okay.
I certainly hope we fund it, but those pipes were paid for out of everybody's money from their water bills. And I think this should be a shared program, 50-50. The water fund should pay for half the replacement, and the CDBG should pay for the other half. We're not going to be able to do this program unless we do it that way. And, you know, these are people who, while they are low income and are going to have to qualify for this, they have been paying the same water rate as everybody else for years and years and years. And it's, you know, and it's one of those regressive fees and taxes that everybody pays. And now we're going to give them a break on replacing their water line. Also, you said something at the beginning I don't want people to get concerned about. You mentioned Flint, Michigan. Flint had lead in their water. We don't have a lead water
this is true.
problem.
Flint,
we have some lead in our pipes that our clean water goes through, and because we've disrupted the pipes, that ends up having some lead loosened, and then it gets in our water. So
thank you for that clarification. Yeah. Flint had a very different water source that was
but it reminds us of the concern.
Corrosive and ate away the pipes.
It reminds us of how concerned we should be about lead. That's what they, yeah. So I think it would be a nice coordinated effort for the water fund and the CDBG rehab fund to participate in this program. That's what I think.
But the city has never paid for the part on private property.
No, I know. But CDBG has never paid for water pipes either.
That is true.
Yeah. So, see, it's a whole new thing. Yeah.
Excuse me.
No reason why it can't. I mean, we've never done that before. We do things inside the house. We don't do water pipes. So anyway, it's just a thought, because I don't know how many of you filled out the spreadsheet, but it's just as tough as it always is. Always tough.
Yeah, without the quorum, I don't want to get into any conversation about it.
Anyway,
This is just presentation.
Yes,
Right.
but hey,
No, I'm fine.
we're not making any decisions. I'm just suggesting things.
All right, okay.
We're either going to stop this or we're going to have a conversation. So, all right. So, thank you very much, Lori. Do you have any more?
One more.
Alley
paving.
Yeah.
So this project was actually presented last year and was not funded at the time. It is a fairly expensive alley at $390,000 in estimated cost, because it is an H alley that has a lot of different legs, and it is typical for us to replace all of the legs of an alley simultaneously, because as we're doing an alley improvement project, we're putting in a new drainage sewer system, and that becomes a lot easier to do when you do the alley all at once. So this is located in the 9th Ward, north of Cleveland and east of Wesley Avenue. There are 24 buildings homes on this alley. 2 of them are multifamily, 2 flats, so there's a total of 26 units. This is a pretty low-income area, 45% low mod income, and because of that, and because our typical way of improving alleys requires a 50-50 cost share, it is unlikely that the residents would ever sign the petition to participate in the 50-50 alley program.
Okay. So we're going to use the holdover money and, no, but we folded in the money unused last year?
We haven't really determined exactly what carryover we have from this year. We folded in some carryover from 2017 into 2018. And so our projects are underway right now. We don't really know what our carryover, usually we're like a year behind in determining how much carryover we have. So the request does not include any carryover at this time.
Right. But we allocated money last year for this project.
Yes, we did. Well, we allocated money for an alley a different alley, because they actually had asked for 2 alleys.
Yes.
And we funded the other alley, which is in the 5th Ward on Jackson, behind Jackson.
That's the one that was 210?
Yes.
Yes.
And did that complete the entire alley, the 210,000?
Yes. It was a much smaller
Much smaller alley.
Right.
Okay, that alley, okay, I got it.
The only thing I could add is that alley improvements generally solve a lot of drainage problems for residents. They improve winter access, especially to their garages, and they solve a lot of maintenance problems for the city as well. When we do the alleys, it's much less wear and tear on our garbage trucks, and we're not going 3 or 4 times a year to regrade the alley.
Yep.
Thank you.
That concludes my projects.
Thank you very much. Ike, next. Welcome.
Thank you. Good day, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Ike Obo, Public Health Manager, Health and Human Services Department. Our request is primarily for the payment of salaries for the inspectors, cost and litigation, printing, postage, and of course the rental inspection software that we're looking to acquire. Currently, we are operating on an antiquated system from 2003. It's very limited in what it can offer us. It delays processes because currently we're still using the old method of sending notice of violations through mail, which would take about 3 to 5 days or even more than that for the recipient or the property owner to get the notice. But with this new rental software that we are looking to acquire, we've been working with IT and the vendor, and hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be launching this program. And what it does is it bypasses the process, it bypasses what we currently do now by mailing notices. And what it does is, just like we do our food inspections, once an inspection is conducted, it's sent via an email so that the operator or the property owner gets it right away. And so what that does is it cuts the compliance time so that we can get compliance right away and rapidly. And I'm also happy to announce that we are fully staffed now. For a while, we've been operating on 2 to 3 inspectors. So now we are fully staffed of 4 inspectors now. So that helps matters because for some time we were struggling a little bit. So I'm happy to announce that. And this was due to some of the losses that we had. Bob Kramer, who was a veteran who worked for the city for almost 14 years, he retired, and we also lost a property maintenance inspector to another municipality, so that left gaps in services. But I'm really happy to announce that we are now fully staffed. Yeah.
Questions? We're glad you're fully staffed,
Thank you.
and I know you are too.
Thank you.
How's the rodent program going?
Oh, it's coming along really great, actually. We are,
I know that.
knock on wood, since 2015, we are actually doing really well. There's a lot of progress there. Our numbers are down, so knocking on wood. And also, I'll use this opportunity to announce that we have our rodent walk, which is on Thursday. So if you can let your residents know if they want to walk with us, it's actually fun. Alderman Rainey has been a guest of ours for years, and it's lots of fun. And on the 18th, we have our annual rodent seminar where we'll be discussing about rodent control.
Where's that going to be?
It's going to be at the Levy Center like we did last year. So we will have representatives from Rose Pest Control giving presentations, and I'll be giving presentations about rodent control as well. So please invite your constituents. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Sarah Flax.
Good evening, Chair Rainey and members of the Housing and Community Development Act Committee. I'm Sarah Flax, Housing and Grants Administrator. I'm actually going to talk about our housing rehab program as well as CDBG administration. Our housing rehab program, as I think you all know, has been in existence since we first got CDBG funding in 1975. We actually still have some deferred loans from the 80s that we're tracking, and one of them was paid back very recently. I mean, this was a woman who was in her 90s now, who had moved into assisted living, but we helped way back in the early 80s, and her loan was paid back when her house was sold, and it actually kept her in her home for many years, when otherwise she would have been forced out. Our housing rehab program helps mostly low-income owner-occupant, is used for owner-occupied homes. All households have to be under 80% of area median if it's a single unit. If it's 2 units, only one of them has to be income eligible. If it's 3 or more, 51% of the units have to be eligible for CDBG, which is great because it gives us flexibility. We do a significant number of owner-occupied 2-flats, and in many cases these are people who otherwise would not be able to stay in their homes. The CDBG request this year is kind of complicated because we don't have a whole lot of money in our revolving loan fund right now. In fact, I just checked today. We have $90,584.97 in, that's the amount, those are the receipts that we've booked this year. And the next project we fund will cut into some of that already. So we are burning through our loan fund, and of course there are years that we don't get. Our income is unpredictable because most of them are deferred loans. So what we are asking is the housing rehab admin portion of the program, asking for $225,000, which funds the staff and their the rehab specialist, the car, the cell phone, all that sort of stuff that goes along with that, as well as our intake specialist, who also does our loan compliance and does all the income certifications, and also a portion of our building officials' time to supervise the program. So in addition, we ask that the loan money that is repaid gets returned, so that's what will be $90,000 and a little odd change so far. But in addition, we are asking the committee to consider recapitalization of the loan fund because we don't think we're going to get enough repayments to continue projects. Now, one of the things we'll continue to try to do is monitor this and give you any information. Now, another consideration is if the committee were to fund the lead service replacement, then that arguably is that would be handled by the rehab specialist, and so that would, there's a certain amount of flexibility among all those things, if you see what I'm saying, which makes it more complicated. But that program, I just wanted to make clear, we aren't planning on, since it's kind of a test, we weren't planning on, those would be only the lead service lines that we're replacing at that time. And our goal would be to get all the applicants at once, bid all of them to make it as efficient as possible. So I just wanted to make that clear. Anyway, that is the housing rehab program in its entirety. Just to give you a little information on projects underway right now, we have 7 projects that are underway right now, and we expect virtually all those will be, some of them are very close to wrapping up, but we expect all of those to wrap up by year end.
Are all those going to be deferred payments?
I think one is an amortizing loan, and it's like a little under $20,000, and it's like a 10-year loan. So the loan payments are not very robust, shall we say. That really is one of the challenges. Another thing that could be considered as a last resort is if we burn through our CDBG money, we could ask for money from the Affordable Housing Fund that we could then use under the same terms. I'm just trying to offer alternatives to the committee. I know how difficult the funding challenges are. In the last, this is since 2016, just so that people have some information on where rehabs take place. There were 5 in Ward 2, 6 in Ward 5, 4 in Ward 8, and 2 in Ward 9. So we really are serving primarily our low and moderate income neighborhoods. One of the restrictions is we only work on houses that are at, the value of the house has to be at or below the area, the median house sale in Evanston too, because obviously then there are assets that people could actually
Tap into.
get if they needed some additional help. Right now we have a wait list of 21 people, so we have a high demand. And what we do is we have a prioritization system that we introduced this year where our committee sits down and we look at if there's anything that comes up that is an emergency. Sewer laterals are a big one. We do a lot of sewer lateral replacements. We also have done houses that have no heat. Where we can, we refer them to the program that people can get free furnaces through CETA, but to get a free furnace through CETA, your income has to be under 185% of the poverty line, which is really, really low. And frankly, that is, we don't have that many homeowners that have an income that low. They wouldn't be able to pay their taxes then. So it's a constant challenge, and our higher cost of housing here makes it more of a challenge. I do want to give an example of a comprehensive rehab. We had a woman who is a senior and who has an adult special needs son with autism. They did not have working plumbing. They did not have a working kitchen. This was owner occupied, but it was identified by our property standards staff just when they were out doing routine, they really looked at it and said this is, and they referred it to our rehab group, and they are thrilled to have working plumbing, a working kitchen, and all these things that they'd been living that way for at least a year, maybe more. So we really are dealing with some incredibly high need families when we're dealing with this.
So when you say we have $90,000, does that mean we have $90,000 to loan?
Yes, that's $90,000 that we have not committed to a project. But going into a year when we generally spend close to $200,000 a year in housing rehab projects. So.
Have over 20 on the waiting list.
Yeah. And some of them can be small. I mean, sometimes not all of our projects are big, but our average project cost, if you look at the last since 2016, has been about $26,000. But when you take out the very small projects, like in one case we literally replaced a water heater. That was it. But the average with the very small projects taken out is just under $35,000. So we really, in many cases, find we have some people have quite comprehensive needs, and we want to do as much as we can.
$35,000 is a big home repair.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we've got somebody who has a hole in her roof that we're working on right now. And when we get cases like that, in some cases we'll prioritize one repair. We'll fix the roof and then we'll go do the other stuff later. But I mean, we literally are working on getting her roof solid before the weather gets any worse. Okay, now on to the really exciting one. CDBG administration is the one that just always gets everybody. Once again, we're simply asking to be allocated 20% of the grant as allowable. We're estimating right now that our grant will be $1,650,000, although we're hoping that it will be more based on where we are, but it's always best to estimate low, especially because if we estimate high and have to cut public services, it's even more painful. Try to spare everyone that. We are going to be coming back with more information hopefully soon about one of the things that will have to come out of our CDBG admin, and that is this whole thing about an assessment of fair housing. Now, Cook County is proceeding with Enterprise as the lead agency, and they are planning to try to do the same thing that we had talked about earlier in the year. Actually, it was late last year with CMAP, but it would the city share of that would be $13,000. The last time we did our standalone analysis of impediments to fair housing, it was about $25,000. So it is it would be, there are multiple benefits. One is that we get a regional look at fair housing issues, and the other one is we spend way less money of our own on it.
But would we do that all in-house?
Well, it would be, we wouldn't contract out for anybody more. Yeah, any of the work that we would need to do on our end would be done by our staff, yes.
And what kind of burden will that place on us? I mean, even if we get a few dollars to do it.
Well, it actually, with Enterprise doing a lot of the data analysis for the whole region and doing the coordination with Housing Authority and things like that, I think we will probably end up having a community meeting to just get people to talk about. So it would be pretty manageable. We will also have to do our next consolidated plan this coming year, because we're in our final year. 2019 is the final year of our consolidated plan. And I'm talking to Johanna about how we're going to handle the staffing needs for that. We have never contracted out for a consolidated plan. It's amazing. There are a lot of communities that just contract out. And I'll be frank, I don't think we can get somebody who's going to be up to speed and understand our community and give us a good plan. So, any questions?
I have a lot about the consolidated plan, but we're not going to do it. All right, so thank you for coming. We needed a forum. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. Okay, committee, any comments? Anything going forward? Yeah, right. Well, on the 9th is our next meeting. Please, everybody come. Everybody come. Are we going to discuss in any way, now that we have a quorum, our spreadsheets, or have a discussion?
I did want to ask something,
yes.
If that's okay.
Mike,
so
that's why we're here.
Yeah. Thank you, Sarah, for getting the spreadsheet to us. And
it's great.
It's obviously, it confirmed what I had feared, which is the public services section is brutal. It looks like, I guess the question that I would really like to kind of ask for the rest of the aldermen is the public services section. The city is asking for $110,000 in the public services section, where we have to cut about 43% of what's been asked. It feels like we can be a lot more. I really understand the challenges that the city is facing budget-wise. It feels like we can be a lot more generous on the public facility side of things, because we just seem to have less requests than prior years. But I guess I'm curious how people feel about that, and
let me just respond on one thing that I wanted to bring up tonight. I think we have to go very aggressively to HUD on the whole issue of graffiti removal. If we have to call it something else, let's call it something else. There is absolutely no correlation between graffiti removal and any other service or activity in public service. Graffiti removal is no different than housing rehab or anything in public works. It is a public works effort. It's a community development. It's a public works. It is not a public service thing. I mean, it's hard work, and it's a contractor job. And I know that we've gone to them before, and they continue to insist it's public service.
I can certainly ask them again, but what they have said, and I've done this at least twice,
Remind us of
is
their-
that it isn't a public improvement. They agree it is, it is basically an ongoing maintenance thing. They consider graffiti removal maintenance. And so it isn't a capital improvement, which is what public facilities and infrastructure is. I mean, just as we can't fill potholes, we can grind and resurface an entire street, but we can't fill potholes. They consider that just repair. And I'm certainly happy to go back and ask them again.
Well, maybe if it comes from another department, I don't know. All right. Alderman Wilson, sorry.
Well, Michael, I was just going to say the draft budget comes out on Friday, so you'll probably have your mind changed by Tuesday from your last comment. So it's also pretty brutal. So,
And I think that I really am going to encourage us to consider some of those sharing things, which goes to your issue. I mean, it might not have to do with public service, but the business with sharing the water pipes, I mean, that will ease up some money, not for public service necessarily, but...
So just to be clear, are you saying that we should try to make an effort to fund even the city requests in the public services section as close as possible? Because if not, it's going to mean something else is on the chopping block?
I think so. I think so.
Well, then can I ask?
Give us an example. What?
Well. Let me ask this. We've had a number of requests for $10,000 requests this year. It feels like the only way to make this work on the public services section then is to not fund a few organizations, because otherwise, either we're going to push a lot of organizations down below that $10,000 mark, which we've been trying not to do given the staff time that is required, or we're going to really, really, really take a big buzzsaw to some of these larger requests, and they're going to go down considerably from even what they got last year, which was considerably less than what they asked. So are we prepared to just not fund, 3 or 4 organizations in the interest of making the allotments that we make matter?
Well, we've done that before. I mean, and I think we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be rough.
Is the 10? Are we still feeling that the $10,000 mark is the goal of the committee, or?
I think so.
Personally, I don't have the set in stone bright line. It's a question. When I personally look at these, I try to evaluate what the biggest impact is for a broader base in the community. So that's kind of what I focus on. So if a group has asked for 10 and they could still have a pretty significant impact for 5, maybe I would say okay. And I haven't done that analysis at this point, but that might not be the case. So it might be if they can't really be impactful at 5 and we don't have the money to fund whatever it is, then it's makes more sense to put the whole 10 to something that will be impactful.
I think a couple.
Not to say, let me add to this, all of these things are wonderful and impactful. Just sort of make sure I say that so nobody thinks that I am not supportive of every one on the list.
No, I think, unlike maybe past years, I think the staff has done a great job of getting amazing group of applicants, and
some applicants have received money, a lot of wonderful money that they hadn't planned on receiving, and we have to take a look at that too. So I think that's important. There are a couple of major donors, so I think that's important. Also, I think it's really important when you look and see what percentage of our money goes to their budget, or what percentage of their budget is our money. If our money is like 0.1% of their budget, I think that's very impressive. I'm very impressed by that, because in some cases our money used to be 90% of their budget.
Right.
And they've done a great job, and they're out there really raising other funds.
But I feel like you've also made the case at some points that some organizations, CDBG is the only thing that's keeping them alive, and in some cases we're funding things that no one else wants to fund.
Well, that you have to look. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So there's both ends of the spectrum.
No, but that's what you have to look at. If that's the case, then you're probably going to be more generous. So, but our budget is coming out.
That no one else wants to fund it because they don't think it's worthwhile?
No, I'm saying
okay.
just because it's, they're not able to attract a large, either more institutional funding or individual donor base, or,
Right.
It's
not because they aren't worthy.
No.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
And maybe sometimes our funding them at a larger percentage in their infancy will encourage other private funding. And that's what's happened in some cases.
Has anyone seen the bike path? I'm just curious. Has anyone seen the...
No, but see, not funding the bike path isn't going to help public service.
Right. I know.
Yeah.
I know. But I'm just... we're still short in that area too, but I'm just curious.
Right.
Yeah.
And as well, a longer conversation.
But I thought it was interesting. She threw the bike path under the bus. Yeah, I know.
Well, you've got a parallel path just over the other side of the river as well.
Anyway, anything else?
One of the things I did want to point out is in our packet, one of the things we are trying to help the committee that you'll get before Tuesday's meeting is identify individual programs where both CDBG and mental health board funds are being asked, because in some cases it's very difficult to tell what impact, in some cases both sources of funding appear to be necessary for them to have significant impact. We'll try to make it clear if that is how a budget looks to us, because in some cases where maybe they're asking $10,000 from CDBG, they're asking $20,000 for mental health board, and that's a challenge too, because this committee will be making its allocations first, and hopefully that will also help guide the mental health board. You do do, actually in the little summaries, it shows where there is mental health. But what we're also looking at is the number of people served, and try to give you kind of a synopsis of more of that information to look at. And there are challenges to just looking at raw numbers, because certain types of programs, the cost per client served is much higher just based on the nature of what they are doing. But I know the committee can understand that and does understand that. It's one thing if you have a after school program that has a few hours, as opposed to if somebody is in a much more in-depth ongoing type of service. And not to minimize the importance of after school programs or anything like that, it's just a different cost per student, because it's one-on-one things tend to be obviously higher cost per person served.
All right. Anything else?
The only other thing I wanted to report is we did hear back from the McGaw YMCA, and they are going to be getting their project done. The one that was delayed, the lighting replacement in the residence facility, I had contacted them because they were ready to move forward, and then they didn't get back to me, so I got in touch with Monique Parsons to find out where they stood on that, because I was trying to see if there were any more dollars to reallocate. But no, they are going to be moving forward, and that is a project that will really help.
Well, we've been talking about that, but people might have forgotten. But I asked you to get something in writing from them on that, about a ending dates.
Yes.
So could you get something?
I will get.
Did you ask them for that?
I did. Well, I asked them if they were going to be able to complete it by April 30th of next year, which was what we had said, and they said yes. And I'll work with Jessica, and I'll work with them, because we've got to get all the contract, all the contract requirements and all that stuff worked out, and won't get an agreement signed until that. They are going to be using John Maraska to work on it, though.
All right.
One other thing I'm going to try to do is see if the ComEd program, which helps for energy efficiency and can help nonprofits in some cases, if we can get any of the costs offset by that, and that would reduce CDBG.
Yeah, that would be.
We'll try.
All righty. Could I have a motion to adjourn? Right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Our next meeting will be the 9th. You will send out a note to remind our applicants?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We've been reminded several times.